Greetings everybody, it's Leviathan here, and we are talking about the latest patch update for the PTR. This is for patch 2.4.3, which we're hoping will go live somewhere in the beginning of January, since the Darkening of Tristram anniversary event is tied to that patch, and that anniversary is supposed to take place in January, so we're hoping and assuming that this patch will go live then, so hopefully that would mean maybe the season ends in December or so. But in any case, the PTR has been ongoing since the Tuesday after BlizzCon 2016, so about a month now, a month plus. And we just recently, as in yesterday, got this update, December 7th update to the PTR, and there were some juicy things going on in this one, so I just wanted to take a quick moment to go over what all happened with this update. So right here, generally you can see that there was an issue preventing transmog options granted by the anniversary event from being available account-wide, so that's just, it was a PTR thing that got fixed. Now we get into some of the juicier things. Items. The Crusader, this was kind of previewed by Nevelistus in the forums a few days before this patch update happened. We knew that there was going to be some sort of cap coming to the Faithful Memory, and if you aren't cognizant or remembering what Faithful Memory's power was that they added to it, was each enemy hit by Falling Sword increases the damage of Blessed Hammer by 50 to 60% for 10 seconds, and now the new part is that it stacks up to 10 times as a maximum. Previously this power did not have a cap at all, and so a lot of people in the community were concerned because it was kind of bleeding into that Twisted Sword meta, something that no one wants to go back to, where it was just this forever scaling damage that you could get out, and it would mean that the Hammered In Crusaders, or Seeker of the Light Crusaders, whatever you want to call it, would absolutely be #1 DPS, and the whole like Greater Rift meta would just be to pull every single enemy into like one specific spot, so you can just have that Falling Sword on it and get a ridiculous multiplier. So now it's limited to 10. You know, this is again PTR, so subject to change before it actually goes live, but the idea here is that this should limit the power in multiplayer so that it kind of de-incentivizes pulling the entire Greater Rift to one point, but it should still make it decent for solo, where, you know, the average of your Falling Swords that you were getting on enemies was probably somewhere close to 10. Potentially you could always get it above if you did some good herding, so this could potentially make your power in solo also a little bit lower. We'll just have to see if that number gets played with a little bit more. Maybe 15 would be the best max, just some number where maybe it's like a number you can aim for but not always get to. But even in my short testing that I did before starting this video here, I was able to get 10 pretty commonly, and I couldn't honestly tell if I was, you know, being capped by that. Like, I couldn't tell if I was actually hitting 12 or 13 or so. So 10 seemed to be very common to get for the max. Anyway, moving on, the Barber is another item that had come under some fire because Witch Doctors were doing ridiculous things. There was some bugs that were going on with this thing as well, so, you know, it was hard to tell exactly how it should be performing, but Witch Doctors was doing like Greater Rift 120 plus solo, so it was clearly an outlier. So they've made some changes to it where instead of dealing direct damage, your Spirit Barrage now accumulates on the target, and when you stop channeling the casting, it explodes, dealing the accumulated damage to all enemies within 15 yards. So it looks like they just took out a multiplier on it, maybe? I'm not super sure how this item is actually working. I've seen some videos, but I haven't tested it out at all. But I'm guessing this should bring it back in line to being a reasonable item. I hear that Spirit Barrage is still just good in general, so this actually should still be a good build. It's a Legacy of Nightmares build that people are utilizing. So I guess we'll see what the testing does for that one. And then the Wizard's Monald Heal. This is a pre-existing ring that got a power for Wizards. Enemies stunned with paralysis also take now 13,000 to 14,000 weapon damage as lightning. So that's a major buff. Before it was 3,000 to 3,500%. So I mean that's gigantic. They're really trying to push this lightning wizard, ranged wizard maybe. So maybe this will make the ring usable. Hopefully Wizards will start to slot this in. I haven't really seen much from the community on this one, besides just a couple of Wizard friends who were saying they weren't really too interested in it back in its original version, so I guess we'll see. But now, super surprising update in this particular patch there were set changes. We didn't really think that there were going to be any sort of like updates to sets or anything like that, because it wasn't hinted at, you know, it wasn't a selling point of this patch. So this patch is actually getting bigger and bigger as time goes on here. And I think these are all good changes to be happy about, because it's kind of bringing some of the old sets or irrelevant sets up a little bit, and maybe now they'll have some usage, whether it's just for, you know, speed farming or potentially getting into Greater Rift meta type stuff, but I guess that waits to be seen. In any case, the Barbarian's Wrath of the Waste set, their 6-piece bonus, got some adjustments. This was one that actually had one of those developer blogs on it to kind of state, you know, we're not happy with it, trying to figure out how we're going to update it and change it. So I guess this is potentially one of the outcomes of that. And now the 6th set bonus reads, Whirlwind gains the effect of the Dust Devil's rune, and all whirlwind damage is increased by 400%. So that's a multiplier now on the direct whirlwind damage, so what you are actually going to spin on, and not putting the damage into the Dust Devils, the little tornadoes that you would get. So I think this actually should bring this up a bit. And then when you also consider the fact that Skullgrasp got a power a couple of patches ago to help out with Whirlwind, and that also became multiplicative as well. Maybe between those, this change and that ring, Whirlwind could actually be a thing again. I know there's so many barbs that just want to be able to spin to win again. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully this is the change that's necessary, and maybe this will be a speed farm build again. Because I used to love Wrath of the Waste and Whirlwinding through everything back in the day. Crusaders! We also got an update as well. Roland's Legacy, so the 4th set bonus, the damage of Shield Bash and Sweep Attack was increased up to 1,250%, previously 750%, so that's a nice bump. We'll see what kind of extra damage output that grants, see if that pushes this setup maybe in some Greater Rifts. But of course, if you're going to increase the damage, there's always that concern about damage reduction, because Roland's tends to be a pretty squishy setup. And now in the 6-piece set bonus, we also see a change where every use of Shield Bash or Sweep Attack that hits an enemy grants 50% increased attack speed, which is the same as it's always been, and now 15% damage reduction for 8 seconds. This effect can stack up to 5 times. So now you're going from 50% damage reduction to 75% at the maximum here. So that's a good change. That's definitely going to help mitigate some incoming damage with the Roland setup. Still not convinced that this will push Roland's into the meta, just when you look at the strength of Crusader Thorn builds, and then also just what Seeker of the Light got with the Faithful Memory. I'm pretty sure those two things will still be at the top of the Crusader tree, but maybe Roland's gets a little bit of, I don't know, a slot where you can maybe speed farm with it or something like that. Still waits to be seen. We'll definitely want to test this one out though, so let's figure out whether that's good or not. Demon Hunters, Embodiment of the Marauder, got a 6-piece set bonus update. Your primary skills, Elemental Arrow, Chakram, Impale, Multi-Shot, Cluster Arrow, Companions, and Vengeance now deal 1200% increased damage for every active sentry, and that's up 400% from what it currently is on live. This could be interesting just because there is that belt now, the Hellcat Waistguard for Demon Hunters. I know some people have been testing out the Cluster Arrow that has a rune on there that delivers some grenades, so that could be something that potentially gains from this change. But I guess I've also heard that the spenders that your sentries shoot out do not benefit from the belt. So it would be nice maybe if the grenades actually would, the ones that are generated from the sentries would also get that bonus, because then that could potentially bring Marauders into a higher Greater Rift meta atmosphere. I don't know if anything will compete with the Demon Hunters Legacy of Nightmare setups, but maybe. So we'll see. I did see that a few people were asking about that interaction with the grenades, and Nevelist said she would check on it, so we might get some more answers on that in the future. And then for monks, in his mantra, just a little damage increase here for them. So the 6-piece set bonus now reads, gain the 5 runed mystic allies at all times, and your damage is increased by 100%. Pardon me, for each mystic ally that you have out, and that's just doubled. They took it and doubled it. Used to be 50%. So, you know, pretty good change for monks. Not sure Inna's is really in favor right now, but at the very least, this is kind of nice because it's kind of more their, I guess between this and Sun Wukong, kind of like more the general setup. So this could be useful, I don't know. And then this one a lot of people were surprised about because Arakir is actually in the meta right now, so it's kind of odd that they targeted this set to boost its power. But for Witch Doctor, Spirit of Arakir 6-piece set bonus, the damage of your creature skills is increased by 2400%, so that's a 900% increase. Creature skills are Corpse Spiders, Plague of Toads, Fire Bats, Locust Swarm, Hex, and Piranhas. So, I mean, hey, if you're in Greater Rift groups and you're a Witch Doctor, this makes your Fire Bat builds even better. But I guess we'll also see if they intend to keep this, or if it's just like an experiment, or again, PTR, subject to change, you never know. Lastly, Wizards, Delsier's Magnum Opus, a set that you really haven't heard much about lately because it really hasn't been relevant for quite some time. The 6-piece set bonus got a bump, so now that enemies affected by your slow time take 2800% increased damage from your Arcane Orb, Energy Twister, Explosive Blast, Magic Missile, Shock Pulse, Spectral Blade, and Wave of Force abilities, and that's an 800% increase from what it used to be. So I mean, Firebirds is probably still going to be the top thing for Wizards, but I guess we can see if this shakes things up for them any at all. And then for the Barber, again, we'll mention there was some buggy things going on with that power for the Witch Doctor. So for PTR, since this was being tested on PTR, they fixed an issue that was causing the explosion created by this item to fail if the stored damage exceeded the target's current health. And then they also fixed an issue preventing plus Spirit Barrage damage from applying to the explosions created by the skill when equipped with this item. And then last but not least, but not to be neglected, some Greater Rift changes. There are a number of changes to improve the play experience of Greater Rifts. Greater Rift Progress Bar now displays the percentage completion at the end of the bar when it is nearly filled, which I did see on the latest PTR when I played through it a little bit. It's a nice change, and then monsters should now be more evenly distributed on each floor in Greater Rifts, and then along with this, the experience in Greater Rift progression awarded for defeating many smaller monsters has been increased, because this was a big complaint we saw in the community that, yes, they increased the density, but what that meant was we were getting a lot more of the like small trash mobs, like those tormented stingers, a lot of the bees, things like that, that basically grant you 0 to very little progress throughout the Greater Rift. So even though you were getting a lot more density, it wasn't very meaningful density. So now we should see, even if we're still getting a lot of those smaller creatures, we should still be moving through the Greater Rift, progressing towards that Guardian at a more expedient rate. So hopefully this helps to kind of normalize things and make each Greater Rift one that is potentially successful and not going to be fished around, I guess, won't be skipped or won't feel like you're punished for sticking in that one. And last but not least, players would now get an extra chance to upgrade their legendary gems if they do not die in a Greater Rift. This was already in the PTR, it was just not documented, so it is now in the notes. So for all of us hardcore people, this is like a permanent thing, unless you die. Hopefully you don't die. And then for all you softcore players, this is motivation to get through your Greater Rifts without dying. And I do believe it's for each player. So like if you're in a group of 4, let's say your support monk dies but you don't, then they don't get the chance for that extra upgrade, but you do. So it's not like one person can ruin it for the whole group. Otherwise though, that's it. A small but very tasty update to the PTR. We will see how many of these changes make it through. Maybe there'll be some additional increases to these numbers, who knows. But definitely excited to test a lot of this stuff out, and I hope you guys are too. And we'll be talking about it as time goes on.